Hey, my friends. My name is Brady Welburn, and I've chosen to do my little 10-minute video on hearing impairment. So, my goal really today is just to kind of help all of us understand what hearing impairment is, kind of what it looks like, what challenges students face when they have this disability, and also different things that we can do as teachers to help these types of students. Um, I've used a PowerPoint, obviously, as you can tell, and I'm also gonna use a different couple videos, one from YouTube, and I also interviewed my mother-in-law, who's a really experienced teacher, so that's what you can expect in this 10-minute lesson. So, with that being said, I'll just go right to the definition. Uh, and I'll just read this, and you can kind of follow along. But the definition of a hearing impairment by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, so IDEA, is an impairment in hearing, whether permanent or fluctuating, that adversely affects a child's educational performance but is not included under the definition of deafness. Thus, knowing the definition of deafness is necessary to understand that what sort of disabilities are considered hearing impairments. A hearing loss above 90 decibels is generally considered deafness, which means that a hearing loss below 90 decibels is classified as a hearing impairment. So, deafness and hearing impairment are very, very similar, as you can tell, but from the definition, there is a cutoff between the two. There are also different levels or categories of hearing impairment. There's slight, mild, moderate, severe, or profound, and all of this depends on whether the individual can hear the frequencies that are commonly associated with speech. So I think how their hearing is categorized can change over time. Like it can obviously get better or worse, but it kind of helps all these individuals to be categorized in these four different areas. Here are some of the challenges that people face, and then we'll watch a video of somebody who has had a hearing impairment her whole life. Uh, they have a hard time with grammar, spelling, and vocabulary. Taking notes while listening to lectures is very hard, and that's pretty understandable. I mean, if you're hearing or understanding about 50% of the time, then how can you take notes or have a desire to? Participating in class, I think some of that is based off of just not being able to hear, but also feeling self-conscious about their comments. Watching educational videos is really hard. Presenting oral reports, often these students or these individuals have a hard time pronouncing or speaking very clearly. And then obviously social interactions with other students. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality that some students are maybe made fun of or picked on because they're just not the same as other students. They just can't hear the same way or speak the same way that other children can. So with that being said, let's watch a quick video of an individual who has had a hearing impairment, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience.
I feel like an outsider when I'm in a work situation sometimes where I think I wish I knew what the depth of the discussion they're asking me to consider is. I feel like an outsider when I'm trying to balance my working hours against the demands of my disability in terms of I've got to concentrate, I've got to lip read, I've got to listen all day long. I would feel like an outsider when such a simple thing as ordering a coffee becomes a bit complicated because someone doesn't know how to code. I feel like an outsider sometimes in my family. I'm the only deaf person in my family, but I don't feel an outsider when I meet people who've been through struggle. My name is Julia Margaret Gilchrist. I'm 33 years old and I was born profoundly deaf in both ears.
Look, Julia, I've written some blends on the box. Do you think you could? What?
It was the end of the world. It really was. There's a grieving process associated with establishing that the child you thought you had is not the child that in fact you have. Then we started to check back and we saw photographs, for instance, where she would be straining to look at someone's lips, and so she grew up in a world where she assumed everyone didn't hear anything, and the way we communicated was reading lips.
When I was going through school, it was very trial and error, and I made a mistake. The social consequences were incredible. Lip reading people's insults or discussions about me from across the playground, knowing that people were saying something about me, it's profoundly alienating because I'm such a people person and I love being around people. For me, I have this amazing close family and people who care about me, and then just making my own way independently was just god awful. And that was a trigger for why I got my first cochlear implant just before I turned 21. They turned it on and I'm like, Jesus, that's noisy. And the audio was just a mum crying, yes! And I'm like, what the is this? And so I'm like, you've got to turn it off. If you go through periods of isolation and bullying, it's easier to turn the hearing aids or the cochlear implants off if you want to rest from the conversations and the noise to regroup and then think, how am I going to tackle this situation? I'm kind of slack. I just pull it off, go like this, it's off, and I'm off air. I'm immediately going back to looking at my visual surroundings and using that skill set that I have. The main thing that it did was it allowed me to blend in, to be able to put my iPod on, and go out in my gym and go for a bit of a run and then do sit-ups and push-ups and whatever. I feel like everyone else in the gym, and I'm doing my speech therapy training at the same time and listening at the same time, taking me what people achieve in 3 or 4 years when they're a baby to 4 years old. It has taken me 33 years to get to that point. I know it means that I'm behind my year group and I'm behind in what people expect with my CV. I'm behind in what people expect of my professional development. But people don't exactly make it easy either. I am a deaf person. It's called a disability because you are at a distinct disadvantage socially, and it's up to the rest of the community to go, well, how far are we going to go to help that person? Deafness is a...
Okay. I really loved what she said there right at the end about the community, how they're going to interact with her and other people like her. And really, that's kind of the challenge for us as teachers is how do we best help students who are going through this? This is just one of their life challenges. I will share a few that I found through my research and as I've been thinking a lot about this topic. But to add to this, I interviewed my mother-in-law, who, like I said before, is quite the experienced teacher. And I will just preface this video by saying my son is in the background crying, so kind of ignore him. But we'll go ahead and listen to Tina. She gives us a few tips from her experience.
Hi, I'm Tina Squire. I teach at Judd High School. I have taught there for 23 years. While there, I teach health, driver's ed, graphic arts, history, girls' weights, PE, and dance. And over the years, I've had a couple of students who have had hearing impairments, and just a few things that I've done in my classes to help those students. So one of the students I've had probably about 5-6 years ago, she really had trouble hearing. She actually, with her hearing aids, had a microphone that us teachers could wear. It was kind of fun because I could secretly tell her stuff that none of the other class could hear, and she would laugh secretly out loud, and the students would just look at her. Sometimes classrooms have microphones that you can wear also, so it makes the room a little louder. This year, one of my students, she does have hearing aids, but she doesn't want to notice her other students to notice, so I just arranged it, make sure she sits on the front row. I make sure I have pictures, I make sure I stand by her and try to speak loudly a little bit without her realizing it or others. I also have her in weights. I don't know if she's caught on, but I just always go over by her or make it so she can read my lips, because I think she can read lips pretty well too. If not, I will go over and ask her if she has any questions on anything like in the classroom and in weights. And I actually drove her also, so I was kind of worried about that if she could hear me, but I would just turn and hopefully she had a good ear right there and just talked to her to try and make things go well for her.
Okay, that was my mother-in-law Tina, and she's awesome. She's got a lot of experience. But to just add to a few things that she shared from her personal experience, and in my research, some of this will be review with what she said. Some of it's a little bit helpful in addition to what she said. You can designate a note taker. So, like I said, sometimes it's hard for them to keep up with the notes, depending on how well the teacher verbalizes things. So, designating a note taker helps. Speaking slowly and clearly is always a good practice, but especially for these type of students. Turn on captions for videos. Often they can hear or can read the lips of those that are in the video, but just turning on the caption is just another way to help out. Using sign language when appropriate. I don't know if this is always going to be the case, but anytime you can just sign or use visuals to help the learners, that's a good thing. Skipping down to another bullet point, position the students in an appropriate desk. My mother-in-law, Tina, she mentioned that. And then last but not least, I thought this was a really important point. Don't incorrectly estimate the child's intelligence as low. And we've watched several videos in this class about how a lot of people with disabilities want to be treated as equal and as normal. And I think that is definitely the case for these students. And we as teachers have no right to estimate or guess that they're falling behind when maybe they're not, just because they don't communicate or hear the same way that maybe an average student would. So, hope this was helpful. It was kind of fun to put this all together, but these are some things that we can do to help students with hearing impairment.